Hi, I'm Jim Ward of the Middle Country Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 41 in our History Bites series. Today we will discuss Flight 93 on September 11th, 2001, and the story of its passengers' bravery and courage in the midst of terrifying events. On September 11, 2001, 19 terrorists associated with the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 airplanes and carried out suicide attacks. Everything changed when American Airlines Flight 11, loaded with 20,000 gallons of jet fuel carrying 81 passengers, was hijacked and flown intentionally into Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. 17 minutes later at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 crashed into the second tower of the World Trade Center. The collisions caused a massive explosion that showered burning debris over surrounding buildings and onto the streets below. It immediately became clear that America was under attack. At 9:37 a.m., a third plane, American Airlines Flight 77, crashed into the Pentagon, killing 125. However, a fourth plane, Flight 93, did not reach its intended target, the Capitol building or the White House, because the passengers on board decided to take matters into their own hands and fight back against the terrorists. United Airlines Flight 93, a regularly scheduled early morning nonstop flight from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco, California, departed at 8:42 a.m., just minutes before the first hijacked plane struck the World Trade Center. The flight's takeoff had been delayed for nearly 45 minutes due to air traffic at Newark International Airport. The plane carried 7 crew members and 33 passengers, less than half its maximum capacity. Also on the flight were 4 hijackers who had successfully boarded the plane with knives and box cutters. The plane's late departure had disrupted the terrorists' timeline for launching their attack. Unlike the hijackers on the other 3 planes, they did not attempt to gain control of the aircraft until nearly 40 minutes into the flight. Meanwhile, Ed Bollinger, a flight dispatcher for United Airlines, was taking steps to warn flights of possible cockpit intrusions. At 9:19 a.m., Bollinger informed pilots of the attacks of the World Trade Center. Flight 93 received this transmission at 9:23 a.m. Captain Jason Dahl responded at 9:26 to request clarification. At roughly 9:28, the terrorists successfully infiltrated the plane's cockpit, and air traffic controllers heard what they believed to be 2 mayday calls amid sounds of a struggle. At 9:32 a.m., a hijacker later identified as Ziad Jarrah, a trained pilot, was heard over the flight data recorder directing the passengers to sit down and stating that there was a bomb aboard the plane. The flight data recorder also shows that Jarrah reset the autopilot, turning the plane around to head back east towards Washington, D.C. The passengers and crew were forced to the back of the plane and told to be quiet. Using cell phones and airphones, passengers and crew began making calls to report the hijacking. They soon learned the shocking news about the other hijacked planes and quickly realized that Flight 93 was part of a larger attack on America. This realization led to a vote and a collective decision to fight back. The passengers began informing several people on the ground of their plans. One of the passengers, Thomas Burnett Jr., told his wife Dina over the phone, quote, "I know we're all going to die. There's 3 of us who are going to do something about it. I love you, honey." End quote. Sandy Bradshaw, a flight attendant, called her husband and explained that she had slipped into a galley and was filling pitchers with boiling water. Her last words to him were, "Everyone's running to first class. I've got to go. Bye." Alice Hoagland, the mother of passenger Mark Bingham, left a final voicemail message. "You've been hijacked by terrorists. They are planning to use the plane to probably hit some site on the ground. Try to overpower these guys. I love you, sweetie. Good luck. Bye-bye." At 9:41, the plane was 34 minutes from the Capitol. Jarrah shut off most mechanisms that would allow it to be tracked, save for what one air traffic controller calls bleeps on a radar scope that provided minimal information. All 4,500 aircraft in flight at that moment were ordered to land immediately. A decision to scramble, in which fighter jets surround an airplane and may shoot it down, was not reached. At 9:47, Tom called Dina a final time. She asked if he wanted to speak with their children. As Dina recalled, Tom told her, "No, tell them I'll see them tonight." Another passenger, Todd Beamer, was on the phone with GTE telephone switchboard operator Lisa Jefferson as she stayed on the line with him, listening as he talked about his family, his fears, and his faith, and she prayed the Lord's Prayer and the 23rd Psalm with him. The last thing Jefferson heard Todd Beamer say was, "Are you guys ready? Okay, let's roll." At 9:57 a.m., the passengers and crew members aboard Flight 93 began their counterattack, as recorded by the cockpit voice recorder. Beamer and other passengers attacked the cockpit door with a food and drinks trolley. The cockpit voice recorder captured the sounds of their struggle: shouts, screams, calls to action, and sounds of breaking glassware. To stop the uprising, the terrorists piloting the aircraft began to roll it to the left and right and pitch the nose up and down. In its final moments, the plane turned upside down as it passed over rural western Pennsylvania. The terrorists remained in control of the plane and chose to crash it rather than risk the passengers and crew regaining control of the aircraft. At 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 plowed into an empty field at a speed of 563 miles per hour. Upon impact, the 7,000 gallons of jet fuel on board the aircraft exploded, creating a ball of fire that rose higher than the trees. The crash site in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, near the town of Shanksville, was littered with the wreckage from the fragmented plane, with a debris field scattered nearly 8 miles away from the initial point of impact. Despite the devastation, investigators were able to recover both the plane's flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, or black box, which was found burrowed more than 25 feet below ground. Though few human remains were recovered at the site, medical examiners were eventually able to positively identify the 33 passengers, 7 crew members, and 4 hijackers aboard Flight 93. The youngest passenger on Flight 93 was 20-year-old Diora Frances Bodley. In the weeks following the September 11th attacks, temporary memorials to the victims of United Flight 93 were erected at the Pennsylvania crash site and elsewhere, and in 2002, Congress established the Flight 93 National Memorial to create a permanent tribute to the plane's passengers and crew. The first phase of the memorial was completed in time for the 10th anniversary of the terrorist attacks in September 2011. Administered by the National Park Service and encompassing more than 2,220 acres, the memorial includes a visitor center, walking paths including the 40 memorial groves, and the Tower of Voices, a 93-foot tower with a wind chime representing each person who perished on board. Visitors can walk through the Memorial Plaza to the Wall of Names, where the names of every passenger of Flight 93 are recorded, before proceeding to the crash site itself, known as Sacred Ground, the final resting place of the heroes of Flight 93. This is a fitting tribute to the courageous Flight 93 passengers who are credited with saving countless lives on the ground. Their actions are considered the first victory in the War on Terror.